All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting will come to order. This is the regular meeting for the Land Use and Transportation Committee. I'm Supervisor Malia Cohen, chair of this committee, and to my right is Supervisor Scott Wiener, who is the chair, and to my left is Supervisor Jane Kim. Our clerk is Miss Elisa Somera. I'd like to take a moment and thank Jim Smith and Jesse Larson from SF Gov TV for broadcasting this meeting. Madam Clerk, are there any announcements?
Yes, please make sure to silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Completed speaker cards and copies of any documents to be included as part of the files should be submitted to the clerk. Items acted upon today will appear on the January 12th, 2016 Board of Supervisors agenda unless otherwise stated.
All right, thank you so much. Could you please call item number 1?
Item number 1 is a resolution authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of multifamily housing revenue bonds not to exceed $31,500,000 to provide financing for an 82-unit rental housing project known as Alice Griffith Phase 3A apartment projects.
All right, thank you. So, colleagues, today we have Ms. Elizabeth Colomello from OCII here to make a brief presentation on this item. Welcome.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Elizabeth Colomello with the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure, or OCII. The resolution before you this afternoon will authorize the issuance of bond proceeds to pay for construction and related development costs for Alice Griffith Phase 3 at 2500 Aurelius Walker Drive. McCormick Barron Salazar, or MBS, is the project sponsor, along with their nonprofit partner, San Francisco Housing Development Corporation. Additional development team members include the San Francisco Housing Authority and Urban Strategies, who is implementing the social services programs at Alice Griffith. Phase 3 is the third phase of the redevelopment of the 256-unit Alice Griffith public housing site as a mixed-income, service-enriched community developed according to the principles of HOPE SF. Consistent with those principles, no existing residents will be permanently displaced as a result of this development, and resident rent calculations will remain the same as they are today. When the redevelopment is complete, all 256 public housing units will be replaced, along with 248 new affordable units, 367 market rate units, 42 inclusionary units, and 237 workforce units. Phase 3 totals 122 units in one building. These units will be split into two financial phases, 3A and 3B, to increase low-income housing tax credit equity to the development. Only Phase 3A will receive the tax-exempt bond financing that is the subject of today's request. Phases 3A and B combined will be comprised of 76% public housing replacement units and 23% new affordable units plus a manager's unit. Phase 3 will include a mix of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. They'll be targeted to households earning no more than 50% of area median income, or about $51,000 for a family of 4 right now. Phase 3, like Phases 1 and 2, is located along Aurelius Walker Drive. One of the benefits of these sites is that they're adjacent to the existing housing, so residents will be able to move directly from their existing units to their new units without being temporarily relocated. Phases 1 and 2 are currently under construction and will be complete by the end of next year. No demolition of existing units is expected prior to 2017. The Lennar Corporation is the master developer for the Hunters Point Shipyard and Candlestick Point, pursuant to a Development and Disposition Agreement, or DDA, with the former San Francisco Redevelopment Agency, now OCII. Lennar is required, per the terms of this DDA, to provide a subsidy for each phase of Alice Griffith. For Phase 3, that subsidy is approximately $10 million. Per the DDA, OCII also provides a subsidy for each phase, and for Phase 3, that subsidy is approximately $10.5 million. In August of 2011, MBS and the development team was awarded a U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, Choice Neighborhoods Initiative Implementation Grant, or a CNI grant, in the amount of $30.5 million, of which $21.35 million is to be used for housing development at Alice Griffith. This CNI funding comes with a variety of deadlines and deliverables, the most important of which is a statutory obligation that the grant funds must be expended and units substantially complete by September 2016 for the portions of the funds associated with Phases 1 and 2, and September 2017 for the portion being used on this Phase 3. The bond issuance before you today will, along with the other funding I described, allow the project to start construction in time to meet these critical HUD deadlines. This bond transaction is conduit financing, which does not require the city to pledge repayment of the bonds. The application was submitted to the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee in August 2015, and the allocation was awarded this past October. The project is slated to begin construction by February of 2016 and complete construction by late 2017. Here with me today is Daniela Graville from McCormick Barron Salazar. We can answer any questions you may have. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for being here as well. Let's go ahead and take public comment. Seeing no questions from my colleagues are in the queue. Public comment is open at this time.
Good evening, Supervisor. Could I get a little action right here? Ace Washington is my name.
Overhead, please.
Could you? Okay. I'm here merely in protest, and I know things are going to go on, but I'm talking about all the parties, interesting parties involved. You got HUD, which came to the city and got mugged. I mean, they actually got mugged with this RAD thing because the residents don't know hill of beans what's happening. So let me go real fast. I only got a couple of minutes. And I protest that I'm only getting 2 minutes because I'm speaking for the community. I'm speaking as the czar of the out-migration, okay? The out-migration, you're going to have to hear that throughout this projects throughout the next 10 years, because Lieutenant Newsom put together a mechanism and an institution for the African Americans and blacks in this San Francisco. And I am appointed the czar. Or whatever the city put together, I'm going to be in that car. So let me just go on here. I could break it down what's going on here, but these procedures, Supervisor Cohen, I'm here supporting this, are clearly out of order. You got every organization, you got McCormick, you got Lennar, you got, the San Francisco Housing Development Corporation. Do you know the history of that? How that came from Geraldine Johnson, that fought for the certificate preference. But I'm also here congratulating you, Supervisor Cohen and Supervisor Bree, for putting legislation together, but there's more. That's just the beginning. We're going to have to rearrange this whole concept of this RAD because the tenants are going to be mad. The PPP and all of this. I've been studying the structure for as long as it's been in existence, but no one from city government called ACE. But damn it, I'm on the case. And I'm going to be here utilizing this airtime because I created this, the San Francisco Government Channel. I'm going to utilize it in the best interest for the community.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers that'd like to speak at this time? All right, seeing none, public comment is closed. Thank you. Colleagues, is there any discussion? Nope? Okay, great. So what I'd like to do now, colleagues, is make a motion that we move this item forward to the full board with a positive recommendation so we can keep this important rebuild of the Alice Griffith Public Housing site moving forward. Is there a second to my motion? Second. Thank you. Seconded by Supervisor Kim. This motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please call to item 2?
Item number 2 is a resolution extending for an additional 6 months interim zoning controls in the Castro Street Neighborhood Commercial District to require conditional use authorization for proposed formula retail use.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Wiener is the author of this item and will speak and lead the discussion at this point.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for scheduling this item. Colleagues, as you may recall, we about 18 months ago passed interim zoning controls that I authored relating to formula retail uses in the Castro Street Neighborhood Commercial District, specifically to address a loophole that we discovered where someone or an establishment could make an application, be determined to be formula retail, and then make superficial changes to the application to effectively game the system and take themselves out of formula retail classification, thus avoiding a conditional use process. And so the interim controls were designed to address that loophole by preventing that from happening, because our formula retail rules are very important. The voters adopted them overwhelmingly. They enjoy strong support, and we want them to be honored and not gamed. Those interim zoning controls will be expiring next month, and so this these current controls would extend the existing controls by an additional 6 months. So colleagues, I ask for your support We do not have a departmental presentation, and so, Madam Chair, I would ask that we open up public comment.
Happy to open public comment. All right, if there's any member of the public that'd like to talk on item number 2, please come so at the podium. You'll have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Supervisors. Ryan Patterson, attorney for the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, or AHF. I represent AHF, which is an independent, nonprofit healthcare organization dedicated to providing cutting-edge medicine and advocacy to patients living with HIV and AIDS, including in San Francisco. This proposal before you today appears simple. In reality, it is not. And we encourage you to please take a closer look at this. It's not simply extending ineffectual interim controls. These are actually targeted at AHF to prevent the opening of an HIV/AIDS pharmacy in the Castro. And that is highly inappropriate to try to keep out one particular HIV/AIDS organization. These controls require conditional use applications for proposals that are not actually formula retail. And in fact, in this case, with AHF's pharmacy, which would be at 518 Castro Street, the permit was already obtained. The Planning Code requires this board to consider 2 things. One is harm to the public, and one is harm to the owner. There is no harm to the public with letting this proposal continue forward, AHF's project to continue forward. The harm of allowing the controls to be pursued further is denying patient care and requiring continued payment of double rent for other facilities as long as this remains in effect. There are no findings in the proposed extension which justify this, and we would request an exemption for 518 Castro Street if the interim controls are to remain in effect, considering that the permit was already obtained and there will be a CU application on January 14th.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Dale Gluth. I'm the Bay Area Regional Director for AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and I'm here to voice opposition to the extension of the interim controls. The property owner is aware of and in support of our project, which is simply to relocate a pharmacy less than 300 feet away from where it currently exists. As a nonprofit, AHF is harmed by this in that we are forced to pay $12,500 a month in rent at a separate space. Our patients, over 1,500 combined between the pharmacy and the healthcare center, also have expressed a desire for us to locate our services in a single space. There are lots of studies that show that when patients receive all their services under one roof, they do better. That also benefits the community. We would like to see these not passed today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing that there's no other public comment is closed. Thank you. I'm sorry, I just closed public comment. I just gavelled down, I'm sorry. Is there a specific directions to agendize this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do just want to note, in terms of the public comment, the representatives, including the attorney from AIDS Healthcare Foundation, the AIDS Healthcare Foundation did, in response to these interim zoning controls, file a conditional use application. As I understand it, that will be heard at the Planning Commission next month in January. And in the end, I understand that AIDS Healthcare Foundation would like to have an exemption from our formula retail rules and from the conditional use requirement. But in San Francisco, we require people to go through conditional use, even if the applicant would prefer not to. And in fact, in the Castro, we have had various instances where for-profit businesses and nonprofits coming into the neighborhood have gone through the conditional use process, and they haven't tried to game the system. They have seen what the process is, accepted the process as the law of the land in San Francisco, and gone through that process. So this is, again, simply preventing the gaming of our system. So colleagues, I move that we forward item 2, these interim zoning controls, to the full Board of Supervisors with a positive recommendation as a committee report.
All right, motion made by Supervisor Wiener, seconded by Supervisor Kim, and without objection, this motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, would you be so kind and please call item number 3?
Item number 3 is an ordinance amending the planning code to modify the measurement methodology for rooftop appurtenances and create a process to authorize certain types of infill floor area in existing structures in a C3 zoning district which exceed the current height limit.
So much. So, colleagues, it's my understanding that the project sponsor is still in discussion with the stakeholders in labor on this particular ordinance, and that they have requested a continuance to January 25th's meeting. Are there any? So, what we're going to do now is going to take public comment on this item. Is there anyone that'd like to speak on item number 3? Please do so.
Yes, my name is Sylvia Johnson, and this planning control distributor is only doing that so that they can put the medicine that is required in healthcare issues. And this, should be, as automatically like, a visit, and which my social worker mistakenly didn't even include me in on none of this, and she like closed the issue on me. And I think that when I was trying to go to sign up for school classes on this issue, that they want me to go Golden Gate Park, and the Golden Gate Park is millions of miles away, and I need a car in order to fulfill all this, these engineering places, which these packaging places that they have here have not even, put on the best packaging, which I need to do all this to fulfill it, and the rules that I include on this that has not been in mistake in any of it. So I think that a lot of this has been like put off, like the bank that I had here and I went to prison for, and they stole my card, and a lot of money was put in the bank, and they still want to put me off on this issue. And I've got already some houses that I built that I think that need to be investigated on.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that'd like to speak on item number 3? Seeing none, I think public comment is closed at this time. Thank you. So, colleagues, is there a motion to continue this item to our January 25th meeting?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim, and that motion is seconded by Supervisor Wiener, and this motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other items before us today?
No, that concludes our business for today.
All right, there's no further there's no further business, therefore this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.